What up guys, Commander, welcome to the final part of my Unreal Engine animation tutorial series. So we're not actually in Unreal Engine 4 in this last episode, we're in Premiere Pro, but it's part of the same series. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be showing you how to collate the... So last episode I showed you about cameras, I showed you about sequencer, and I showed you about movie render cube and how to set up your cameras and then turn your in-game animation that you can see in your viewport into an external render. Now, what I've got today is I'm going to show you how to turn that image sequence that I created in the last episode into a video, and then what I do to post-process it in Premiere Pro. Now, I will just say this, the first step which I'm going to show you, and I think even the actual what we're going to do in the whole video as well, you can also do in After Effects. However, I prefer to use it in Premiere Pro just because I like Premiere Pro's like UI better than I do After Effects. But the actual thing of like turning image sequences into video, you can do it in After Effects as well. There's plenty of videos out there to show you how to do it. So first things first is we need to do. I'm going to show you how to import an image sequence into Premiere Pro. Now, there's a right way and there's a wrong way of doing this. Right, now the wrong way of doing it, just for argument's sake, so this is the folder with all of the images into it. The wrong way of doing it is clicking every single image and dragging and dropping it into Premiere. That's the wrong way of doing it, because what that then does, I mean, you can do that and you can drop it in and that does work, but it gets very fiddly and it's like, it doesn't look that great. The right way of doing it is by going to File, Import, already open in the video folder anyway, click the very first frame and make sure image sequence is checked. Then when you click open, it'll collate the image sequences to turn it into a video. Right, now it's literally as easy as that, and the principle is the same for After Effects as well. Now, what you need to do before you put it into the timeline is right click on it, click modify and interpret footage. Now this only applies if you didn't render it from Unreal Engine in anything other than 60 FPS. Right, so this I did in 24 FPS. For some reason, I don't know why it happens, I don't know why Premiere Pro does it. I'm not sure what After Effects does, but Premiere Pro does this. It automatically assumes that the footage you're importing is 60 FPS. I think it's because if I go into my sequence settings, my sequence settings are set 60 FPS. I'm going to change to 24. I think I've got to change to 24 anyway. I'll double check it in a second. But for some reason, regardless, even in my trader saves, which are set sequence based to 24 FPS, Premiere Pro seems to always interpret the footage as 60 FPS instead of 24. So make sure you set it to assume this frame rate and set it to whatever frame rate you exported it as. In my case is 24 FPS, so that's alright, and then I'll click OK. That'll then extend the timer. You can then drag and drop it in here. It won't play back particularly well. It does okay in here. It's a bit laggy and a bit slow, as you can see. Now, don't do anything with this for the moment. What you then need to do is you need to go File, Export, Media, when it decides to load, and these are all the settings that I use for when I'm rendering an image sequence. Now, I will just say this, these settings that I've got here, do not use these as normal video rendering settings, because when you get, so most of these settings are what I use for Premiere Pro for my own YouTube videos anyway, except for down here. So I set constant bit rate, and my target bit rate I put as 120 megabits per second. The reason why I do that is because it keeps the same quality, so Premiere Pro doesn't lose any quality when it's rendering. I can keep that exact same quality, and because they're such small video files, they render really quickly anyway. But if you did this on like a 20-minute video, you're looking about a few hours worth of render, so I wouldn't advise it. Now, I'm not going to bother rendering this. You can save it where you want to by clicking that there. So I'm not going to bother with that because I've already got it rendered as a video file here. So let's get rid of that. let's drag and drop this into here. It's got no audio, so I'm just going to right click and get rid of the audio. Right. And as you can see, it's alright. It's not too bad. I think I'm still playing at 60 FPS though up here. No, that's set to 24 FPS. That's alright. It's a bit slow. I don't quite know why it is that slow. Really? Or did I render it at 60 FPS? Oh, there we go. I seem to have fixed it. I don't know why. I've changed the speed to 120% to make it a 5 seconds 20 instead of 720. Or 7 seconds. I don't know why I need to change that. Whenever I do my Drater stuff, I never need to make the image sequence quicker. I don't know. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I actually rendered the image sequence originally in 60 FPS. Maybe. I don't quite know. But anyway. So, we got the video here, and it plays. It's not perfect, but it does the job. Right, so you got the image sequence there. Gives a salute. Yada, yada, yada. Right? So, a couple things we need to do is, first things first, you go into color. Do some basic color correction. Now, this doesn't do huge amounts. Like, it doesn't... It depends on what scene you've got. It'll make a difference or it won't. So... in order to do your color balance, your white balance, you need to click this. Now, you can manually move the sliders if you want to, but if you click the little white balance selector, click anything that's white, and it'll automatically choose the values for you. Now, I'm going to adjust the values ever so slightly just to make it slightly warmer, and then we get into the tone of the video where we've got exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks. Right, if you click auto, it'll automatically do it for you. Now, in my experience, this auto is never accurate. It's always off in some which way. Now, in this particular instance, you can tell that the exposure is way too much. So I'm going to bring that exposure down all the way down to the bottom. Now, I only use auto because I want it to give me an idea about what I'm looking at. So then I'm going to turn shadows down just because I don't want it too bright. I'm going to turn the highlights up a little bit. I don't do too much highlights. Contrast again just to make it the background a little bit darker. Turn the whites up, and I'm going to put the blacks down a little bit as well. Or up a little bit, should I say. Then change the saturation to 120. There we go. And as you can see, if I just turn that on and off, you can see it makes it just a little bit brighter. The clone stands out a little bit. I'm actually just going to turn the temperature down a bit to 5. Just because I think that's a little bit too warm. And I'm going to change this down to 6. Just because that looks looking a little bit too purpley. But as you can see, it just makes the clone pop a little bit, and it makes it a bit more easy to see. So that's very dark and dull. And then you line it up, and it makes the clone look a little bit more like in the scene, and a bit more lighter and easier to see. So that's what I'm going to do in color. Then what I'm going to do now, that's the main bit of what you can do. There's one other thing that I do. Well, there's one other effect that I want to add in, and that is, so if we go to HLS noise, if we go to HLS auto, what this does is it adds a film grain effect. Now, when you're rendering, you don't want to have it looking really grainy, but if you look in any modern day movie, now these little things that I'm going to add from now to the end of the video, you can choose whether or not you put them in. It depends on how you want your video to look. I like my videos looking quite cinematic, which is why I'm doing the 21:9 ratio. If you don't want that, you can do it at 16:9 ratio and have it full, like, you can have it full 1920x1080 or 3840x2160, whatever you choose. So that's fine. It depends on how cinematic you want it. I quite like cinematic look, so I'm going to add these different effects in, but it's not in any means required. So what you've got now is you've got so if you look at any modern day movie or any movie in general, you can see it is very grainy in the background, and that's because while they shoot videos without any grain, they'll often go back in and add grain a little bit. And again, I learned all of this from William Fortune. So again, I'll leave his channel in the description down below. He's got a video about how to make Unreal Engine look more cinematic. He uses DaVinci Resolve, I think, and there's some certain things in DaVinci Resolve that doesn't quite unify with Premiere, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a bit. But whereas one of the things I'm showing you now, he has film grain, right? But film grain isn't a feature in Unreal in Premiere Pro. You can add it in Unreal Engine, but I like to do it in post because I think I can control it better. But in Premiere Pro, it doesn't have a feature called Film Grain, but it has HLS Noise Auto. Now, you can use HLS Noise. The good thing about Auto is that it animates it within the video that's being played. So HLS Base is just static film grain. It would just be film grain, that's it from start to finish. It'd be the exact same position. Auto animates ever so slightly. It's not too noticeable unless you're paying deep attention, but it's a little feature that is nice to add, I think, anyway. So anyway, we've got HLS Auto already put in. We're going to change noise to grain, and we're going to change the grain size to 0.2. Animation speed, you can keep to 24. Again, change this depending on what your frame rate is. If it's 60, change to 60. If it's 54, change to 54. If it's 10, change to 10, yada, yada, yada. If it's 24, keep it to 24. I think it keeps the same depending on what the frame rate of the video is. I'm not entirely sure, though. It might just be a coincidence. And anyway, so we want lightness. I'm going to turn my lightness about 1.5 just as a test. Now, if I go in and zoom to about 400%, you can see, especially around the armor, it's starting to get that grainy look. Like, if I turn it off, it disappears. Then if I just like toggle between turn it off and on, it's not very noticeable, but you can tell, especially in this background area here. Like, if you look around the back on the side of the clone, if I turn it off, you can definitely see it coming on and off. So again, if that's a little bit too much, just turn it to like 1% and it goes away a little bit. I'm going to keep it about 1.5 because I quite like that. The next thing is adding a bit of bloom into the scene. Now, again, Premiere Pro doesn't actually have a bloom option like DaVinci Resolve does. So what you need to do is you need to do it via adjustment layer. So what I do is you need to do adjustment layer like that. All settings should be automatic. And then drag and drop it on top of the video file like that. Then what you need to do is you need to go into effects and type in Lumetric. Oh no, Etri color. Drag and drop that on top of the adjustment layer. And then go to, I think it's HSL secondary. Yeah. Get rid of everything except for these two. Sorry, but except for this bottom. We'll get rid of the top two. And then add in a Gaussian blur as well. I forgot about that. So add in a Gaussian blur. Leave the Gaussian blur for a minute. Then click show mask. And at the moment, it's all completely blank. Right, so what you can do is you can move the arrows like this. There we go. Now what you need, you can invert it if you want to. It depends on what works best in your scene. I'm going to keep it as it is now. And what you need to do is you need to just play about with this a little bit. So I'm going to keep it that for the moment because I think that's going to look okay. Then what you need to do is you need to go into opacity, change the blend mode to lighten, and then change the opacity to 50%. Scroll down and put a 30 blur on it. Now get rid of this repeat edge pixels because as you can see there's an outline along the side of the video. If you get rid of that, it just deletes that, right? So you can sort of see there's a bit of a drop shadow around the edges. Click that and get rid of that easy. Right, so as you can see that's a little bit too blurry. So you can either turn down your Gaussian blur a little bit, or you can play about with your slider. Might make it a bit better. Or you can just turn down your opacity, so turn it down to 30. There we go. So literally all that does is it adds a little bit of bloom into the scene. Right, it's not huge amounts, and in certain scenes you may not even want it. And again, this is the sort of thing with these cinematic kind of looks. You need to make it's sort of your own decision about whether and how well you want this to look. You know, some things that I do in here you might not think is necessary. You might not put it in. You might find something that I've missed that would look good in your scene but might not look good in mine. This is sort of my my thing that I do for Traitor that I think works best for the way that I like cinematic things to look for my own projects. But for you it might be different. You might not like bloom in your scene. You might not like the film grain effect that I've put in. That's fine. But it's to do with what you want in your scene. So I can tell you what I want. A bit like what we did last episode with the cameras and sequencer. I can tell you this information as best as I can, but you've got to make up your own mind about how you want it to look, you know, and how to tweak the settings
to look like make it look like what you want it to look like. You know, so you look at that. You might want some bloom in your scene, but you think that's not quite enough. So you might want to change it back to 50 and have it quite blurry like that. You might think that's too much, change it down to 10 and get rid of it more or less. So it all depends on what you want it to look like at the end of the day. Now, the last thing I'm going to add. Now, this is a bit weird. I did originally put this into my traitor episode, my traitor scenes, because I thought it looked good. I've since actually gotten rid of it because I'm not as much of a fan of it as I used to be. Now, what I mean by that is adding a bit of a glow. Now, I'll show you what I mean by that. So if you get another adjustment layer, and then if you get the ramp effect, and then add that onto there, and what you can do is if I get rid of the ramp a minute, and then just get 2 background colors. So let's get that, and then let's get that. Right, let's put that on. Let's make a circle like this, then feather it out really quite to the extreme, and then just extend it a little bit. Focus it around the main part of the clone that we want to actually have it focused on, and feather it out really quite extremely. Turn it out like that if you need to, but feather it out. Ah, yeah, right. So I clicked inverted. Right, so I clicked inverted and it makes it a bit more stronger. So, and then you click blend with original, like let's say 80% or 70. And what it does is it just adds a bit of color into the background and sort of just makes it look a bit like, change the color and adds a bit more color into the background. So like adds a bit of like fog. Now, when I was on the Venator Bridge scenes that I showed in a video before, is a traitor work in progress. I showed a scene with Captain Rex and CO450. Now, beforehand, I had this ramp effect, but with 2 blue colors, and it looked really good. But as I started looking at it again and turning it off and turning it back on again, I thought it doesn't really look that great. And really, in here, it doesn't look that great either. But it's there if you want to add a bit more color. But I have since got rid of it on my traitor scenes, and it doesn't exist anymore. But that's also another little color thing you can add to it if you want to. You know, even if you want to, let's say, go back into it and change the colors to the, let's say, change it to this color. And it's that color. It's stupid. That's not good at all. That's pretty awful. But it's there if you want to add a bit of color to your, a bit like background color to your scene. So yeah, do it if you want to. I personally wouldn't. But again, this is what I mean by, you've got to choose what you want to do based on what you think looks best. Like if you think that looks good, fine, use it. If you don't use it. It's as simple as that. You know, I don't think that looks particularly that great. I think it looks better without it, personally. But you guys might think, some of you guys might think it looks better with it. So anyway, that's pretty much the crux of everything that I do within Premiere Pro when it comes to post-processing animation files. The exporting system is basically the same. If you've got a bit of a longer sequence, so like let's say it's about 3 or 4 different clips long that make up a couple minutes, change back down to 85. 85 is what I use for my YouTube videos, and it brings out a really good quality out of YouTube anyway. I wouldn't advise going any less than 70, 65 at the bare minimum, because anything below that you start getting video problems with YouTube because of YouTube's compression thing. But for this video, if I was just going to upload this video to YouTube just as it is, I would change it to 120 and keep it at that. It's only 84 megabytes. It's not that bad, you know. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay on the screen now what it looks like when it's been fully rendered with everything we've got in the scene now. So the video, the bloom, and the ramp effect all together in one scene in Premiere Pro. And I'm going and now that's all done, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of a weird one because I'm not used to using Premiere Pro as far as videos are concerned. And, you know, again, like I said, I've done this countless times before because this is what I'm doing with Traitor. But it's really quite weird. It's really quite weird for me because I've never done this sort of thing before. Maybe I should, because I've done a video editing video before, how I edit one of my videos. So
maybe in the future I'll actually edit a video that I've actually got to edit, if that makes sense. So maybe I'll give that a go. But anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash the like button and hit the subscribe button for awesome gaming content. If you have any other suggestions for videos like this that I can do, or have any questions about what I've done in this video or any of my other Unreal Engine 4 videos, leave in the comment section down below and I'll try and answer them, or if I can't, I'll give you reference to somebody who can. Again, the link to William Forge will be down in the description down below, because he does insane videos on Unreal Engine and how to make it look really good. Like I said, half the stuff that I know about Unreal Engine and how to make my scenes look cinematic, I wouldn't know if it wasn't for him. He's an insane content creator and he's helped me so much. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I shall see you all later. Bye.